Hi, in this video, part 3 of section 7.2, we're going to look at the Shapley-Shubik power index, which is another way to assess power if you have a weighted voting system. So we start here and it says the Shapley-Shubik calculates the power differently. Instead of just looking at which players can form coalitions, the Shapley-Shubik method decided that all the players form a coalition together, but the order that the players join the coalition is important. So it's the order. This is called a sequential coalition. So instead of looking at a player leaving a coalition and then that coalition not being a winning coalition, this system examines what happens when a player joins the coalition. So if when a player joins the coalition changes from a losing to a winning coalition, then the player is known as a pivotal player. Now, we count up how many times each player is pivotal and then decide the number of sequential coalitions. Note that in reality, when coalitions are formed for passing a motion, not all the players will join the coalition. So the sequential coalition is used only to figure out how much power each player possesses. Now, the number of sequential coalitions that you can get is n factorial. So if you have 5 players, it would be, it would be 5 factorial, which we recall there's a button on our calculator that will do that, but that's the same as this, or 120. All right, so for Shapley-Shubik, we are going to simply put our coalitions in order. Let me show you how this works. In the weighted voting system, 17 being our quota, and the first player's weight being 12, the second player's weight being 7, and the third being 3. We only have 3 players. So we're going to write out the different orders that we can get them in. So you could have player 1, player 2, player 3, and we write Shapley-Shubik ones with kind of triangle-looking brackets. So leaving player 1 first, we could rearrange player 2 and player 3 and have player 1, player 3, player 2. Sorry about that. Or we could have player, and those are the only different coalitions with player 1 being the first. Then we could start with player 2. And then go player 1, player 3. Or we could have player 2 be first with player 3, then player 1. And these are the only orders with player 2 first. And we could have player 3 be first with player 2 and player 1. Or player 3 be first, with player 1 and then player 2. So there were 3 players and 3 factorial is 6. So there are 6 ordered coalitions. So now we see, let's see, 12 plus 7 is 19 plus 3 is the total here is 22. Let's see what happens when we add these together. So I'm going to do this in a different color. I'm going to write the players' weights down here and then we'll add them. So here we're imagining that player 1 joins the coalition first. He's 12. And then when player 2 joins, now we have a combination of 19, which exceeds the quota. So player 2, when he came to this coalition, is the pivotal player that changed it from a losing coalition to a winning coalition. Now we go on to our second instance where we have player 1, player 3, then player 2, which is 12 plus 3 plus 7. If I add 12 plus 3, I get 15, so I'm not quite there. And 7 puts me over at 22. So I'd have to say once again, it was player 2 that was the pivotal player. If we go down to this order, 2, 1, 3, then I'd be adding 7, 12, and 3. 7 can't do it by himself, but when you add 12 and get 19, we exceed the quota. So player 1 here is the pivotal player. If we start with player 2, player 3, then player 1, then we'd be adding 7 and 3, which is 10, which doesn't quite make it. And we'd have to wait until we added the 12 for it to be a winning coalition. For the last two, we have player 3, player 2, player 1. So 3 plus 7 plus 12. 3 and 7 is 10, doesn't make it. So once we add the 12, we get to be a winning coalition. Here, player 3, player 1, then player 2 is 3 plus 12 is 15, doesn't quite cut it. We need player 3, or player 2 in this case, to make a winning coalition. So now we have, for our players' power, there are 6 coalitions and 1 pivotal player in each coalition. So the denominator is 6. And then player 1 was pivotal 3 times. Player 2 was also pivotal 3 times. And player 3 sadly was not. So player 1 and player 2 share 50% of the power. And player 3 is a dummy. Let's try another one. In example 7, 2, 10, they give us the voting system 7, 6, 4, and 2. And they want us to use both the Banzaf and the Shapley Shubik. Let's start with the Shapley Shubik, since that's what we just learned. And we're going to want to make the ordered coalitions. So I'm going to rewrite this down here. And again, we're going to have the same 6 coalitions: player 1, 2, 3, player 1, 3, 2, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3, 1, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll write those out, and then we'll look at evaluating the pivotal player. So in doing Shapley Shubik, we'll always have these same 6 ordered coalitions if there are 3 players. So you could kind of just like get those figured out, because that'll always be how you start with Shapley Shubik. And then player 1 was worth 6 points, player 2, 4, and player 3 was worth 2. So we put them in the order that they occur in the sequence. And then we have to find out when they hit the quota of 7. So here 6 doesn't make it by himself, but 6 plus 4 is 10. So 4, or player 2, turns this into a winning coalition and is our pivotal player. Same here, we go 6 plus 2 is 8. That's going to work. So it's going to be player 3 here. Here we have 4 plus 4 is not going to do it, but 4 plus 6 is 10. So we're in business with player 1. Now we have 4 plus 2 is only 6, which doesn't quite make it. So we have to go all the way to the last joiner here to find our pivotal player. Here we have 2 plus 6, which is 8. That's going to do it. So our pivotal player is that one. And here we have 2 plus 4, not going to do it. We have to wait to add the 6 to get above 7. And that means player 1 is our pivotal player here. So in figuring Shapley Shubik, we had 6 coalitions with 1 pivotal player in each coalition. So our denominator is 6. Player 1 was pivotal, it looks like 4 times. Player 2 was pivotal once, and player 3 was pivotal once. So this is 67%. And this is, I think, about 17%. We could, that adds up to be 101 because we had to round up on all of them. But that's what Shapley Shubik would look like. So now we're going to go back and we're going to look at Banzaf, which is from the previous video. And this is a far simpler one, so I think we'll be okay. Now recall in Banzaf, we look at all coalitions of 1, 2, and 3 sizes. And since there are 3 players here, there will be 2 to the n. In this case, n is 3. 2 to the third minus 1, or 8 minus 1, 7 possible coalitions. Now I'm going to list them out, but you don't have to, because you only have to list out the coalitions that are winning coalitions. Let me show you what I mean. So here are the 7 coalitions they're talking about. The 1-person only coalitions, the 2-person coalitions, and 1 3-person coalition makes 7. Now we know you wouldn't have to list out that there is no dictator here. So none of these guys are going to be a winning coalition on their own. You can just cross them out. Then we look down here at the 2-person coalitions. 6 plus 4, that'll cut it. That makes 10. So that is above our quota of 7. 6 and 2 makes 8. That works. But 4 plus 2 is only 6. So this coalition doesn't work. So we're really only looking at 3 coalitions here, which is kind of nice. Now here we have to decide who is critical. When we look at Banzhaf power index, we look at critical. And critical means if we got rid of the player, would the coalition, if the coalition doesn't make it, then that player is critical. Let me show you what I mean. If I cover up player 1 here, then I only have player 2, which is only 4 points. So player 1 is critical. If I cover up player 2 here, then there's only 6 points. So player 2 is also critical. Here, both of these guys are going to be critical because none of these coalitions would work if they were just one person. So both people in each of those coalitions is going to be critical. Now, if we look at this one, who is a critical player in my last coalition? If I cover up player 1, 4 plus 2 will not make 6. So player 1 is definitely critical. You need him in order to make 7, which is the quota. If I cover up player 2, I have 6 plus 2, which is 8. So that works. So he's not critical. I don't need him. Same thing with player 3 because 6 plus 4 is 10. So player 2 and player 3 are not critical. Now, when we do our Banzhaf power index for player 1, player 2, and player 3, let's see what we get. Now here, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 highlighted critical players. So the total number for Banzhaf is 5. And then player 1 was critical 3 times. And player 2 and player 3 were each critical once. So here it looks like if we use Banzhaf power index, player 1 has 60% of the power. Player 2 has 20%. And player 3 also has 20%. So we did get slightly different values using Banzhaf than using Shapley Shubik. But that's okay, they're different systems. So I hope this was helpful. If it wasn't, please email me or come to office hours and we'll work on these together. Thanks for watching.